Lewis Haynes was caught on CCTV with the teenager on the night she was killed just before Christmas last year. The 31-year-old strangled Lily after she rebuffed his advances and left her body in a reservoir. Households struggling with the cost of living are now facing an 80% hike in their energy bills. Ofgem has announced the price cap will increase from just under £2,000 to over £3,500 in October. The government has acknowledged the rise will cause stress for many, but Prime Minister Boris Johnson says help is coming.
The pipeline of cash stretches out throughout the autumn. So there's going to be another £650 coming for every one of the 8 million most vulnerable households in October. In November, another £300 to help every pensioner, £150 extra for everybody who is entitled to disability benefits, on top of what we're doing with universal credit and the living wage, lifting both of those up.
The US Department of Justice has released court papers known as an affidavit that convinced a judge to authorize a search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. The FBI search on the 8th of August in Florida was part of an investigation into the potential mishandling of documents by Trump. The affidavit includes evidence gathered by prosecutors and could reveal new details about the inquiry. Trump has previously denied any wrongdoing. Cardiff City Football Club have been ordered to pay over £5 million to French side Nantes for the transfer of Emiliano Sala, who died in a plane crash in 2019, 2 days after Cardiff had announced his signing. The Court of Arbitration for Sport ruled the deal was complete before his death, and so Cardiff must pay the first instalment of the transfer fee agreed for the Argentine. Salah had been travelling to Cardiff after signing for £15 million. TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's over to headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. Joining me tonight are Nick Dixon and Lewis Shaver. Schaefer, sorry, I don't know. You're so clean-shaven. Actually, you look like a father and son team.
I made hosting look easy. You've made it look quite hard already.
Actually, Nick, this is called... I got the job because I've got charisma. Natural charisma.
No, you're just loud.
You're a seat filler. Okay,
I just want to say...
Okay, anyway, Nick's going to shut up. Cut his mic. Nick's going to shut up. And we're going to take a look at tomorrow's front pages. And we start with the Daily Mail, as experts warn that the rise in bill cap next year could hit £6,600 and wipe out savings for 6 million people. A bit of disaster on the way. Inflation won't be helping that, hitting savings as well. Moving on to the Daily Telegraph. It says the middle class will also be needing energy bills help, according to Zahawi. He's the Chancellor. We've also got Patel facing axe from the Cabinet if Truss becomes PM, which is looking likely. And we've got the Russian spy who infiltrated NATO. That's a story we're going to be covering very shortly. Now we've got The Guardian saying lives will be lost as gas and electricity bills rise 80% to $3,500 a year. Yeah, the gas and electricity prices are going up because of the net zero policies you supported, you left-wing muppets. Anyway, I'm not biased at all. Moving on to the Financial Times weekend, that's also got millions facing energy poverty as household bills are set to surge. They've got a picture of a gas ring on there, just in case you didn't know what they were talking about. The Mirror says, our whole country is facing an energy bills catastrophe. For heaven's sake, do something. Everybody's getting very emotional about this and hysterical. Moving on to the Times, we've got energy bills hit £3,500 with the worst yet to come, and the warning of double-digit inflation for a whole year. They're assuming it's going to go back down, which I guess at least is something. The Daily Express has got Boris, pipeline of cash on the way to ease Bill's pain, as if, I think they're talking about the energy bills rather than a guy called Bill who's in pain because he doesn't have enough money. And finally, the Star, we've got Aussie, I'm haunted by spirits. So at least the Star have gone with something a bit more light-hearted, even if it is supernatural and possibly toying with the devil. Okay, those are the headlines. Saturday's Daily Mail now, and if you didn't already know, there's an energy crisis and we might have to save some energy, Nick.
Yeah, so Chancellor Nadim Zahawi told broadcasters the reality is we should all look to our energy consumption, and quite controversially he said there's a war on, so we should all start rationing our energy use. Now, you know, a bit much to blame the war when you could argue that it's our net zero targets and our failure to adequately prepare that has done this, rather than the war. And I mean, I hate to be harsh, but who voted to prioritise the war? I mean, yes, we want to help Ukraine if possible, but not at the expense of, not at the cost of, you know, impoverishing our own people. So that's the controversial thing about that, clearly. And Boris Johnson's popped up and said, don't worry, extra cash will be announced. He's probably just on holiday promising sort of funny money. And it's an open goal for Starmer, because he said it's absolutely forgivable that the government is missing in action, as he inevitably would. And Martin Lewis from Money Supermarket said it's a catastrophe. And, yeah, that's where we are with that.
Lewis, have you got anything to add?
I think the whole thing is unbelievably stupid. It's like when I was 18 years old, I was traveling through Europe because I'm privileged. And I met some Swiss guy, and I said, why didn't the Germans attack Switzerland during World War II? And he said, because, I can't do an accent, but because you don't attack your bank. And what did Britain do? We attacked our oil producing part. We attacked Russia, basically.
Well, we didn't attack Russia.
We attacked by sending weapons to the Ukraine was the equivalent of attacking Russia. And so Russia's turned off the tap and we're screwed.
But no, this idea that, I mean, Ukraine is the front line of Europe, is the front line of Western liberal democracy. And they're doing us an enormous favour. It's Ukraine's men and women who are dying fighting Russia. We're sending weapons, but they're spilling their blood in the fields.
That's what they're saying. But at the end of the day, because we've decided to fight Russia, we're being killed on the oil price.
But if we don't fight Russia in Ukraine, we'll be fighting them we'll be fighting them at Dunkirk.
Yeah,
eventually.
okay, so maybe it's justifiable. So maybe somebody needs to say, you know what, this is what's happened.
But are you saying that we should ration our energy, though?
Oh, absolutely. We have to ration energy because there isn't enough energy, because net zero and all these ridiculous green policies have left us with not enough energy.
That's what I'm saying.
We've closed down North Sea oil and gas. We're not fracking. Fracking is still banned in the UK. Truss said she's going to turn it around, but it's an absolute nonsense.
I wondered how long it would take you to mention fracking in the episode. It was about 8 minutes. I tricked you into that. But you're basically saying, you support the war effort, but it's net zero and the lack of fracking. But what about this claim that he's making that it's a very few people anticipated war, and now he's basically trying to blame that? Is the war really to blame?
Few people anticipated war. Like, Russia invaded Ukraine, seized Crimea in 2014, invaded the Donbass in 2014. So this isn't new.
Can I ask you a question, Leo? And I'll ask Nick a question. Isn't it true that Britain needs to get oil imports? We were getting oil imports.
Yeah.
And we were getting oil imports from places that are now, the prices are going sky high because they're not getting oil themselves from these countries. So it was anticipated. I thought British people are so smart. You mess with the
Well, we anticipated better than Germany, which is not saying that much. We're not quite as screwed as Germany.
We're slightly beating Germany in the race to the bottom and freezing to death at winter.
And that's kind of what we do.
Well, moving on, I still think we should have made ourselves energy self-sufficient. Moving on, we're still talking about the energy crisis in Saturday's Guardian. While this crisis is going on, our leaders in Downing Street are nowhere to be seen.
Well, what are they supposed to say? I mean, what are they?
Well, they could say something.
They could say something, but it's not going to help anything. And I think the British people don't deserve an explanation of what's going on. They should have figured it out themselves. They're supposed to be, you British, I'm in a mood against the British people, but you're supposed to be so intelligent. You should know what's going on.
We're supposed to be intelligent.
Yes.
Have you met any British people?
Lewis,
I have met British people, and you strike me as almost just as intelligent as Americans.
Well, there we go. This is your calibration for intelligence.
I love that you're always attacking our intelligence, yet you're on GBNews attacking Britain. It's one of the dumbest moves you could possibly do.
Not dumb. It's dumb for them to put me on. I wouldn't have put me on. I wouldn't have put me on.
Hard to argue with that.
But here's the news. The news is, in The Guardian, like there's some friend of the Tories, is that Downing Street has faced widespread disbelief at the refusal of ministers to appear on TV and radio to answer questions about the increase of the energy price cap, which is something I don't understand. Why should the government regulate gas prices. It just causes problems.
Yeah. I mean, price caps and subsidies, they don't work because the problem is there's not enough energy.
Yeah.
So if you subsidise it, people aren't going to restrict their use. And so the price is going to go up even higher because everybody's still trying to use the same amount. It's an absolute nonsense.
And
if you've got 5 eggs, you can't turn it into 10 eggs by subsidising them.
So the problem is, you could say the government's absent, which is what the headline is: Downing criticised for media absence. Now, you could say there's always a crisis, so at some point people have to have a break. But it obviously looks particularly bad at the moment. There's no clear policy on this. Boris is away. You've got this endless leadership campaign. I cover the news every day. I don't know what their plan is for the energy crisis. I've got no idea. My plan is don't turn the heating on, because that's my plan every year, because I'm northern. Yeah. But the most plan I've seen from them is Zahawi coming out and saying help is coming with £400 off energy bills and a second instalment of £650 for vulnerable households and £300 for all pensioners. That's the only thing I've seen. Boris Johnson is saying he has to leave the decision to his successor, but she's too busy campaigning and having a pop at the French.
Where's the money coming from?
Well, exactly, yeah. Boris will print some out.
And here's
he's got a 3D printer.
Here is the big issue. Yes, is a fuel price crisis, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's, £5,000 a year for the average person. Wait till mortgages start going up. Wait till it's killing me, or it's going to kill me. If it goes up to 5-10%, it's going to be hundreds of pounds a month extra. We are in a crisis, Leo. I blame you.
And do you think Boris, because Boris seems to have just gone AWOL. He's shown complete disdain for the British people by just going on holiday twice. He hasn't. The only thing he seems to have done that's in any way in keeping with his job as a prime minister, which he still holds, I believe, is he's gone to Ukraine to do another victory tour of Ukraine before the war's won.
It's ironic that you would say he's gone AWOL against the British people. The British people hated him. All the Labour people hated him. And a lot of the Tories hated him too. So if I were kicked out, if I were treated with that much disrespect, I would say, you know what, I'm going on holiday, I'm not going back to work.
Yeah, but it's not true because the British people hated him. I mean, a huge number of viewers of this channel loved him for a start. Loads of people loved him.
A lot did, and you're not to blame. But the rest of the people who wanted it, who are voting for Truss and that didn't even have him on the ballot, why should he? Why should he?
Because it's his job. He's supposed to. You're
saying out of spite, he should leave the country in limbo because he was treated badly.
And he'll say to people...
It's what you would do.
Yeah, I think it is. I have done that. I have gone...
You've left countries.
No, I've gone on strike. Pennsylvania won.
What, as a comedian?
Yes.
No one cares about that.
When I had a real job and I felt the boss was not treating me properly. Hotel and Resort Management magazine. And...
1945.
Still around. But I felt that the boss wasn't treating me with respect. So I just basically had to sit down and strike. I just didn't do anything.
Wow, man, things must have been bad if you think you get treated with more respect here. Anyway, from one crisis to another, we've got Saturday's Times with a story about France's demands to help tackle the migrant crossings, Nick.
Yeah, France demands extra 110 million euros from Britain for Channel migrant patrols. And this is additional to the 100 million we've already paid them the past 4 years to do nothing. So this is, and they're saying that we haven't paid them 10 million we owe them, and we're saying we totally paid you back, bro. So that's the argument. Now, I have a friend who was speaking to some ex-British Army mercenaries. These are the kind of friends I have. And he had a great solution for this. He said, put the migrants on a sea lion, not the creature, it's a helicopter, dump them in France on a beach. Then they're suddenly France's responsibility legally. Now, you've invaded French airspace, but, you can deal with that later. That's going to cost you. That's going to cost you some trouble diplomatically and money. But we're already paying them. They already want 110 million.
Was this friend called Xi Jinping?
Think about it, and then it's a massive disincentive for other future migrants to come because they think they're going to end up back in France anyway. Just an idea, not my idea, just passing it on.
Well, I mean, incentives, isn't this the problem, Lewis, that there's no incentive for France to actually work with the UK? They don't want these people to stay on the beaches in France. They want to ship them off to the UK.
So basically, what's happening is we're asking France to stop people from leaving France.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. That's why this thing is ridiculous. It's our. I'm speaking as a British person right now.
Okay.
It's the accent. It's the British. It's Britain's. I love Britain. But
that was clear from the last section. Where you said we weren't intelligent.
It was a bit overexcited.
Sometimes you love it too much.
Yeah. Don't kick me out. And no, it's not up to France. to do. We have to deal with that ourselves. We as English, British, Scottish people, we've got to be more brave and say, no, you can't come into.
Yeah, what do you think a solution is? Like, 'cause we had, on Monday, we had a record number of channel crossings. 1,300 came across in one day. And so we're at record, tens of thousands of these, basically fighting-age men from North Africa and the Middle East coming across, and from Albania and other places that are quite often like perfectly prosperous and safe, and they've travelled through prosperous and safe countries to get to the UK. What do you think the solution is?
I'm not going to say.
I've just given it, but can I? Sorry.
You did give a solution.
Yeah.
But I think there's even more solutions. You just have to let people know they cannot come here. Maybe you have to pick them up at the border. You have to send them to Rwanda. And I mean, it sounds cruel for me because I'm a dirty immigrant myself.
Well, the other thing is they are stopping people coming from genuinely really troubled places. They're stopping them coming in. They hear about this and they say, why can't I get in? It's like, oh, we've got all these migrants. It's very unfair.
They're jumping the queue in front of genuinely needy people. Yeah. And a lot of them are economic migrants, and obviously the asylum system is broken. It's easy to game, and we've got a whole industry funded by the taxpayer of asylum lawyers who will help people to stay and tell them what box to tick on the form to let them stay. The system's totally broken. I know that what they do in Australia is if you try and enter Australia illegally, then you revoke all right to stay in Australia. So that disincentivises anybody from trying to enter illegally.
Yeah,
Seems like a good system.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Done. We solved it.
Yeah, we solved it. We can move on.
It's not very likable. That problem is it's not likable.
Yeah, I don't.
We've all accepted that.
Yeah, maybe we're past the point of trying to be liked. Anyway, The Guardian now, and sticking with France, I think anyone who's read history will know whether we're friends or enemies with them, Lewis.
Yeah, well, that's the question. I mean, The Guardian says that there's a serious problem, that Macron says there's a serious problem if France and the UK cannot tell if we're friends or enemies. The fact is, throughout history, the British people and the French hate each other. Let's be honest. I mean,
I like the French.
I know you like the French because you're Scottish, and the Scottish people have always used the French as kind of like a wedge against the English.
You're a citizen of Europe.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, you are. But
Western
English
liberal
people
democracy.
Never did. And historically, the only reason why Britain is part of the EU is because the French and the Germans didn't want Britain to be part of the EU. It was just kind of this attitude, like,
really?
why won't you let us in? Because it's I want, doesn't get. That's the mentality.
Is this true? Was Britain desperate to join the EU and France and other countries?
Was. You could look it up. Charles de Gaulle was against. He kept on saying no, no, no.
That's French for no.
Yeah. I'm just But the fact is that there's been tension.
Have we actually covered the story? Just do you want me to have a crack at it?
Briefly, just.
I'll have a crack at it. No, it's all right.
We can go back to Lewis.
No, I should do it first. Then it should go to Lewis.
So maybe you should do all the stories you want to do.
Well, yeah, and then you can add sort of whatever it is you bring.
Yeah, why not? I could do it that way. I think it's better for me that way. I don't have to read the stories.
Basically, what happened is Truss said that the jury's still out. We did cover that bit on whether the Macron's friend or foe. The thing is with Truss, she's in campaigning mode. She's been campaigning now for years. She's been on this incredibly lengthy leadership campaign. She's forgotten how to... She's not thinking about appealing to the country. She's appealing to the base. And it was pretty based, and it was pretty funny, but it wasn't that diplomatic. And, of course, like you say, she was right historically. But Boris has said some nice things to sort of balance it out. He said, we have a bond relationship with him or whatever. He said it from holiday somewhere, probably. But but then Macron has sort of hit back and said that the UK is a friend, regardless of its leaders, sometimes in spite of its leaders. So a little passive-aggressive French stuff going on there. He said it's never good to lose your bearings in life, and whoever becomes leader, I won't ask myself any questions about them personally. Not sure what that really means. I think he's saying, I'm not going to like Truss now because she's dissed me, but I'll get on with them as an ally.
Of course. Listen to me, Nick. You made a big deal about this story. The fact is...
I didn't. I just thought we should do the basics of the show.
Yeah, now the Nick's done the basics and read it off a bit of paper. Can you do the funny stuff, Liz?
Yeah.
No, you're asking me too much. The thing is that Liz Truss is one person and Macron is one person, and it doesn't matter whether they hate each other.
No, it does matter. I mean, we're particularly at a time with the rise of China and Russia, and the breakdown of the old American hegemony. So we're seeing a sort of partial disintegration of the alliances in Western liberal democracy.
Right, but as soon as an issue comes up, which is important to both of us, both Britain,
like Russia,
or
migrants,
you join together, and that's what's going to happen. Whether it's Truss or Macron, It doesn't matter.
Do you think it suggests that maybe Truss doesn't have the soft skills to be PM? She seems a very sort of almost like a technocrat.
Well, she was Foreign Secretary, so you'd think she'd be good at this, but then she did make some gaffes around Russia as well, didn't she? I think basically, look, she was at a campaign thing, hustings thing. She was having a bit of a laugh with the Tory party members, and she didn't think it through that much. But now everything is blowing up massively because that's the world we're in. That's
so it's a little comment that got taken out of context.
And I accept Nick's apology.
Saturday's Times. And let's end this section with some bad news about Christmas. And the Royal Mail seem to want to cancel it, Nick.
Yeah, Royal Mail on course for strike over a crucial Christmas period, just in case you were worried there was one industry that wasn't going on strike. And it's a debate between the unions. Well, not debate. I mean, it's worse than a debate between the unions and Royal Mail. It's 115,000 Royal Mail workers. They've rejected a 2% pay rise. 97% of people support the strike in the union. They're going to continue it possibly till January. And the overall claim is that they're saying, look, you've made all this profit. You made $758 million. Why don't you pass some of it on to us? But the unions are saying, well, that's what the unions are saying. But Royal Mail is saying, actually, we didn't make that. The other company, GLS, a kind of separate international business, actually made it. We're operating at a loss of $92 million. We're losing $1 million a day, and we actually don't have any money. Stop asking us. And they're also claiming that they're slowing down modernisation because they need to compete with Amazon.
Yeah.
And the Royal Mail chairman saying, we can't do that if you want to not work past 4 p.m. and things like this. So it's a classic debate. We're going back to the 70s and 80s, and it's great times.
I mean, do you think, Lewis, do you think the Royal Mail workers, by going on strike, they're almost sort of, removing themselves? Because there is competition there. There's Amazon, there's DPD, there's other ones.
Yeah, there's a million levels of competition. And what makes this story so painful is that this reminds me, as Nick says, of the 1970s and 1980s with high inflation, with people going on strike all the time. And I don't want to hear it anymore. Is that I'm going on strike myself from any discussion of inflation. This is a time when there is inflation, when there is going to be strikes, and it's just can we figure out a way for not discussing it, like maybe having an inflation-free hour?
A deflation in the amount.
I know what you mean. We do strike stories every night. It's look, and I'm sort
of because that's in the news.
Yes, but and it's a news show.
I mean, this is
sometimes not so much when you're on, but at times.
This is like, to me, because this was 50 years ago. I've lived through this already. It's like it's deja vu all over again. It's killing me. This is why old people die. They don't want to go through this kind of thing.
Go through the strikes again.
I don't want to hear about some postal workers.
I know. Well, I'm a very moderate centrist, so I'm just going to say it's hard to run an efficient business now with unions doing this kind of thing, when you've got competition like Amazon. At the same time, the cost of living is brutally high. What are they going to do? So, I'm very moderate and balanced.
And everybody wants their slice of the pie. So that's it for part one. Join me in part two, where we will be discussing how an anti-slavery campaigner has been cancelled due to slavery links, the Russian spy seducing NATO commanders, and there's another leadership contest, but this one is a little different. I'll see you in two.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Leo Kearse, and I'm still with the biggest comedian in Nunhead, Lewis Schaefer, and the big dog himself. He makes us put that in every show. Nick Dixon.
Well, at least you got Lewis's name right. That's an improvement.
Yeah, all right. Well, Schaefer.
I only agreed to do this show because I thought Andrew was hosting. I wouldn't have agreed if I knew it was you. Just FYI.
Well, if I'd have known you were going to be on the panel, I'd know how far I'd fallen. I wanted Joe Caulfield.
Yeah.
Anyway, Saturdays.
He wasn't available.
Saturdays, put your shiny head away, Nick. Saturday's Telegraph and Russian spies have interesting ways of getting information out of NATO, Lewis.
I mean, I don't know how this is news. This isn't a Telegraph. It says that there's some femme fatale Russian spy posed as a Peruvian jewelry designer. She's a Russian, right? And lured NATO commanders into honey traps. Well, that's not news because that's what spies do. I would assume that's what. I hope we would do it. We would do that. But,
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, this is a weekend paper. It's the weekend, so people run stories that you might want to read over a coffee.
Oh, I see.
About exciting femme fatales, yes. Russian spies.
Sounds amazing. But all women are basically honey traps.
That's the voice of experience there.
And they're looking to get you into trouble.
I love that. It's like, it's us two that have to provide the balance on that. You're out of luck tonight.
Because we still have some hope.
Yeah. No, I don't. I've given up. But you're married, so well
I'm married,
done.
Yeah.
You're in the ultimate honey trap, in a way.
But Nick, you're worse than I am because you gave up hope before you had to give up hope. I've actually had reasons to give
You've
up.
lived and loved and
Nick
suffered.
was born biologically without hope. Is that true?
No, I've given up on women. But why is that part of this story? I mean, I love the way Lewis is in danger of destroying our entire show. It's like, this isn't even news. Like, that's kind of the show.
I mean, it's in a newspaper.
Well, it isn't even news because it's like, what, a woman spy tried to get information from
I know what
NATO?
you mean.
Yeah.
I mean, of course they do.
It's more like a Netflix series.
It's interesting. Yeah. No, hopefully it will be a Netflix series. But I think this story is quite fun, quite interesting, like the sort of Mata Hari type character. But in real life, as we've seen with the Skripal poisoning, we saw that Russian spies are generally just a couple of lumpy blokes in a transit van with some Novichok.
Yes, but it doesn't sell as well, does it?
Yeah.
Tell you.
Yeah.
Well, in a way...
You can't just only on this show can you put a couple of weird blokes on and call it TV.
It says this woman, after she did her nefarious thing by mingling with NATO and U.S. Navy advisors in Naples, which sounds amazing, she fled to Moscow in 2008 with her cat.
I like that you've got an orange highlighter pen. Do you think that's why women don't like you that much?
I'm trying to be more professional.
Nick doesn't use a highlighter pen because he thinks it's not masculine enough for him.
He's got 137 IQ.
Who does, Nick or Lewis? Nick told you that.
He told me.
Oh my God!
I can show you the screenshot.
Anyway, the screenshot. Oh my God! Do you ever go past a test on Facebook that you don't do? Anyway, Saturday's Independent and a consent law is being introduced. Only yes means yes, or in Spanish, only sí means sí, Nick.
Yeah, Spain introduces new only yes means yes rate, like as you said in the Independent, and it requires explicit consent. So the law before was that there had to be violence or intimidation, and now they've changed it so there has to be consent. And this kind of happened after there was a horrific rape by the so-called Wolfpack gang who raped a woman, and they only got done for sexual abuse, not rape, and they got 9 years. But then because of the huge public outcry, they changed it to 15 years. And yeah, obviously, so it's a horrific crime. This passed with 205 votes to 141 against, and I suppose the against part can only be that you can, when it comes to consent, you can possibly abuse that. We've seen with the Me Too movement, you can possibly say retroactively, oh, I didn't really give consent and things like that. So perhaps that's why it didn't pass. Otherwise, it seems fairly reasonable that you should.
And does it bring Spain up to the same sort of rules and regulations as other countries?
What? I like who?
I don't know. I'm just trying to make conversation.
I thought I didn't. Well, I don't know that, Leo. I can't tell you that part. I thought
Did you say you don't know?
I wait for Lewis for the real details of the stories.
Well, the real detail is the people who propose this thing. From now on, no woman will ever have to prove that violence or intimidation was involved in order for it to be considered a sexual assault.
Right.
Yeah.
That means you just have to take the woman's word for it. That worked for Amber Heard, and it's gonna. Here's the problem with this. This is in the pattern. This is the death of love. This is a horrific thing because it's against the law to have unwarranted sexual advances.
Right.
It's considered to look at a woman, in too long a period of time.
That's harassment.
That's harassment. So going up to a woman and saying, I would like to have sex with you. Do you want to have sex with me? Could be considered unwanted sexual advance.
But this is the conversation I guess you'd have to have explicit consent in Spain.
So what's going to happen? Do you think some guy is going to ask a woman? No, they're not going to ask. They're going to stay away. And women are not going to find love. And that's what's happening in the world that we live in today, is that the powers that be are going out of their way to make it impossible for families to form, for people to find love, for love to happen. They want to destroy families. They want to destroy having children. They don't want any more children. They want to destroy communities, tribes, clans, nations. It's all about the, the world...
Globalization, World Economic Forum.
Globalization. And I said before, it's all about having rich people getting rid of pesky humans, right? So that they can have a free ride.
Don't point at Nick when you say human.
He's pesky. He's very grumpy. More grumpy than I am. I don't know how that can happen. And here, let me finish my point. So it's the death of love. Is that right now, what the rich people want is depopulation of the planet. Or maybe the planet wants depopulation of the planet. And the way they're getting it is by putting lots of walls between men and women. Yes, you should have consent. But at the same time, to make it a law like this, where it's just like whenever anything happens, you could be, something bad could happen to you, stops love from happening.
Okay.
The only thing I wanted to add is obviously it's a horrific case, but is it really going to change rape, the fact they've brought in a consent law? Because if you call the wolf pack and you're raping people, you're not really going to be bothered about the law change particularly, are you? Yeah, I don't think anybody was going out and doing it, thinking it was the right thing or the lawful thing to do.
Right.
Anyway, moving on, The Independent now, and Joe Biden is doubling down on the smear campaigns against Trump and his followers, Lewis.
Well, you know what it is. I'm surprised they can, this is Joe Biden in The Independent, so they're going to put a spin on it, basically, because it's The Independent. But he was actually let out of his house in Washington, and he went to Rockville, Maryland, which is right across the border. And he said that the MAGA Republicans, I think he's making a distinction between Republicans and Trump Republicans.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in the way things have gone is they've made everybody a Trump Republican. So there's no more Republicans. Everyone's either a Trump Republican or they're a Democrat. And he said basically he called Trump's people semi-fascists.
Right.
Which offended a lot of people. But I saw it as a kind of progress because semi is not quite the same as being called a fascist.
Yeah.
And when we were children, and I mean 18 years old in the 1970s, we used to go around calling people fascists. We had no idea what fascist meant.
You didn't call them semi-fascists?
No, we just called them fascists, and it was our way of feeling superior.
Oh, much as it's used now, then?
Yeah, exactly how it's used now, and it's a sign of incredible immaturity and lack of intelligence on Joe Biden's part.
And Nick?
Yeah, well, it's absurd because they're the ones using the intelligence agencies to crush their opponents, as we saw with the recent raid against Trump. Not just Trump, of course, they've got this Bannon subpoena. They raided Peter Navarro and Roger Stone. So they project onto their opponents. This is what they do all the time. They're the ones using big tech to censor people. Trump was kicked off Twitter. We all know that the Dems, they speak to big tech and these things happen.
Yeah, Zuckerberg just admitted that the Facebook algorithm crushed the Hunter Biden story.
Yeah, suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story around the election. He was like, it was a tough call. He basically was saying it's a tough call because one side wants censorship and one side doesn't. So he sort of did a half censorship in the middle. It's totally absurd. When Biden ran, the idea was we're going to have the adults back in the room. Of course, I didn't fall for it, but some people, even allegedly smart people like Sam Sam Harris were like, we're going to have the adults back in the room. He later apologised and realised it wasn't that, because the Biden administration is radical and incredibly divisive.
Yeah.
And when you're calling your opponents fascist, you're essentially saying you can do anything to them and it's valid because they're a fascist and it's the war.
It's dehumanising them. It's actually a semi-fascist tactic to call someone a semi-fascist.
They're calling them Nazis. And the fact is that Joe Biden, and people don't know what fascism is. It's a mixture of the state and businesses combined together, and that's exactly what that they are.
Yeah.
Is they're bad.
And you need moderate people on their side to call it out, but I don't see that happening because they've all become so radical as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Democrats do seem to be led by the progressive far left of the party. Anyway, Saturday's Mail now, and there's a leadership conference in government, one more exciting than the Tory leadership. A queer leadership, Lewis.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's like, this is in the Daily Mail, and there's this woman, Suella Braverman, who's the Attorney General, and I saw this name and I said, this reminds me of a Jewish chick from the place that I grew up in. You know, I got a very, very strong positive image of this. And, you know, not that there's anything wrong with her, but she's not anything like me. But is that she's the boss, and she said, don't go to any conferences. Don't be woke. Just lay off the woke stuff, right? And what do these people do? They spend £500 a day going to a woke conference.
Yeah.
You know, to be aware of their implicit biases and acknowledge how you participate in oppressive systems. And the fact is that the boss cannot stop her own people.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there were sandwiches. So obviously they're going to go. I've had a job where you could go on training days, and going on training days with sandwiches was a lot more fun than doing a day's work and paying for your own lunch. And Nick, aren't you worried that if attendees don't go to this, then they won't have the tools and knowledge for building a more inclusive, healthier and sustainable queer future?
There is that risk, Leo, but I'm prepared to risk it, sandwiches or not, because this is so ridiculous. The government... This government has done nothing against the stealth cultural revolution that's taken place. So they end up sounding like a kind of hapless opposition. Even within their own organisations, they can't control the people and they can't stop people doing this woke stuff. Because really, that's what they are. You've got Twitter and big tech, you've got the civil service, you've got the police, you've got the NHS, any number of universities, schools, any number of institutions that have bought into the sort of, whatever you want to call it, the woke revolution that's happened. And you've got the Conservatives there, an alleged Conservative Party, help us to do anything about it, despite how long they've been in. So it's absurd. Only now do you have people like Kemi Badenoch, Suella Braverman actually saying anything about it. But for years, they just said, oh, it's stoking divisive culture wars. So they didn't grasp the significance of the culture war. They didn't grasp how widespread it was. And now it's too late, and they're finally realising, and now they don't even have control of their own people. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So basically, can I say this? Because I've been thinking about it, and I know this is a right-wing station. But basically,
it's not a right-wing station. We're regulated by Ofcom.
I mean,
regulated by Ofcom. Yeah, exactly.
For this hour, it is. But
is that it's perceived? Is that basically? I think the Conservatives are unfit to govern. You know what I mean? No one would have predicted me to say that, but based on stories like this, it's just...
Yeah, but the only difference is when Labour get in, they're just going to do all this, but they'll love it instead of saying, no, don't do it, but it'll still happen.
I mean, this is the thing that worries me. All the things that are being that the government's being criticised for, I don't see the Labour Party at all helping. They're not going to cut back on the amount of equality, diversity and inclusion coordinators on, suckling at the public teat.
They're just going to have slightly worse sandwiches.
Yeah, no sandwiches. You'll be eating your dog.
But
You'll be eating out of a bin.
Yeah.
But you expect
Labour
to be doing that, so it won't be as painful as when you sit there and expect Suella Braverman to do her job, and she didn't do her job.
Now, Saturday's Times, and how can an anti-slavery figure get cancelled over slavery, Nick?
Yeah, this one's particularly infuriating. So this is Statue Inquiry adds Edmund Burke to Parliament's slavery list. So Edmund Burke, if you don't know, is known as a father of conservatism. He wrote a seminal work about the French Revolution, and he's sort of synonymous with the right itself. He's almost synonymous with the emergence of the term. I mean, the term right and left, those terms come from the French Revolution, and then Burke was a significant figure on the right. So it's really going after the heart of conservatism. And it's this committee that's been set up. And the absurdity, as you said at the start, is that Burke was against slavery. He was, as it says here, a lifelong opponent. He considered it a moral abomination. But they've tried to get him on the fact that his brother made money from plantations in the Caribbean. So his
brother.
Very, very tenuous, yeah. So it's absurd on every single level. And I ask, why are these things allowed to happen? Again, much like the last story. Because you find out it's a committee a cross-party group chaired by Dean Russell, a Tory MP. I don't know too much about Dean Russell. I had a quick look for him. He had a sort of minimal Twitter presence. And it's somehow allowed to happen by the Conservatives. And it reminds me of when Sir Roger Scruton was alive, and he was our foremost Conservative thinker at the time. And yet, he was thrown under the bus by Tom Tugendhat, Johnny Mercer, James Brokenshire, and they sided with the New Statesman, this leftist magazine. So it's very similar to that. Why has this been allowed to happen? It's this review. Apparently, there's no plans to actually take down these statues and artworks, but it says the review has logged hundreds of statues and portraits which depict figures associated with the transatlantic slave trade. So it's basically like a commie list of naughty statues that, for some reason, is being allowed and has happened under the Tories. And it said it also, last point, it happened in 2020 after the Black Lives Matter protest. So in the George Floyd hysteria, this was allowed to happen.
So I'm right then. I think the Tories haven't done what they're supposed to do. And maybe it's time in this country for a division like there was in America with between Trump and then the white-shoed Republicans. To split.
The white-shoed Republican.
Yeah, whatever, the golf
the rhinos.
club, the rhinos, the ones who were like really nice and nice. What's the guy's
Country Club.
Country Club.
Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, can I just put my 2 cents in on this story?
Oh, please do.
Because as a descendant of slaves, okay, my family still hasn't been paid for building the pyramids. and right now, Cleopatra's needle sits on the Thames.
Must be very triggering for you.
It's very triggering, and I think that needs to be sold so that I can get reparations, or the British Jews can get reparations for what happened in Egypt 3,500 years ago.
Okay.
I'm impressed. There's really no story you can't make about you, is there, Lewis? It's amazing.
Who'd have thought it an egotistical comedian?
You're right.
It's surely a first. Anyway, coming up, that's the end of part 2, and coming up, next, it's the end for the business card, a new start for moon landings, and the school bringing back spanking. I'll see you in 2 minutes. Don't go away.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kearse, and taking us through the weirder stories of the day are comedians Lewis Schaefer, pronounced it right this time, and Nick Dixon. Saturday's Telegraph is a story showing that teachers always hated the scruffy-looking kids at the back, Nick.
Yeah, unconscious bias in schools leads to harsher grading of inferior children, inverted commas. So it's very interesting, because if you've heard about unconscious bias training, it's nearly always rubbish. But in this case, it may actually be right. And this is at the University of Sussex. And they found that it was 416 teachers, and they found a grading difference of 4.4 percentage points being ordered for those of higher social and economic status. So it's very interesting because they tested it on Year 6 students aged 10 and 11, and they were white, British or black Caribbean, and they found that there was no evidence of racial bias in teachers' judgment, but there was of basically class bias, I would call it. Kids from poorer backgrounds were thought to be inferior across a range of indicators. So it kind of proves what I've always thought, that class, not that race is not important, but it's secondary to class in this country. We've imported this American idea that we're a racially divided society, but we're a far more class-divided society, and always have been. And this kind of proves it, and it backs up my bitterness about going to comprehensive school, where we were treated badly, and we couldn't get into Oxbridge despite being 137 IQ, as you mentioned.
Which you got from a test on Facebook.
A Mensa test and a proper Mensa test. So it's not even that high. But anyway, so there you go. So unconscious bias finding looks like in this case it might actually be correct when it comes to class.
And something is justifiably correct because everybody knows that people of a higher socioeconomic place do better in life. So the teacher's just reacting to the fact this guy comes from a nice family. Whether he's smarter or stupider or whether he writes badly or not, he's gonna get ahead. People, and I think they've proven this. When they've tried to let poor people go to university, they just don't quite work out.
No, he was right to point at you. But
Lewis, you're saying that they were right. No, they're creating that problem. You're saying they're right because rich people do better. Yeah, because of things like this.
No, not at all. No, it's not because of things like this. Is that every teacher knows that a person with a superior upbringing does better than even a very smart person from whose socioeconomic group is.
Thank you. So give them a lower grade then, because their life's going to be easier anyway. Balance it out.
Well, wouldn't that just be lulling the children from a lower socioeconomic background into a false sense of security and, storing up a big shock for when they leave school?
When they leave school and they say, you know what, oh, wow, you're great. You're going to be able to go to Cambridge. And you go to Cambridge and you can't hack it.
But hopefully class will come back into the public consciousness, because we all know the left have sort of got rid of class quietly, didn't they? And they shifted on towards
they're all posh now. The left are all posh, so they don't want anybody to look at class. They think all white working class people are scum. We've seen that so many times with the Labour politicians, with their reaction to grooming gangs. They'll always put white working class people at the bottom of the heap, which I'm fine with because I'm middle class. Anyway, the Times next, and we thought we'd give this one to you, Lewis. You're our token panellist, being from outside the UK.
Yeah, well, I don't know why this has anything to do with me, because I'm outside the UK. It's like, this is the Times, and they're saying this actress, Rose Ayling-Ellis, who has been on Strictly Come Dancing, has been criticizing deaf tokenism, is that deaf people are not on TV enough, and that she agreed to star in Strictly if culture and identity were reflected in the program, like there's a deaf culture. I've got athlete's foot. What about my culture? For people with athlete's foot. I'm not saying being deaf is not a bad thing. It's a horrible, horrible thing to be deaf, right? And I think love needs to be given to people who are deaf. But to think that they're being forced to be, she complains that deaf people are being excluded from the normal concourse.
Because the subtitles and the provision on television isn't good enough.
Good? But it's not that they're being excluded; they're just not being included. It's no one's going out of their way saying we got to keep deaf people out of this business.
Yeah, I totally understand that distinction. But yeah, I mean, look,
I'll explain it to you. I think it's a very good distinction.
Okay.
Excluded.
You do it after the show.
I think people out there know. They know the difference between excluded and included.
Yeah, I was joking.
Nick, what's your take on it? You say what you like because they can't hear us.
Basically, society can't function catering perfectly to every single minority. And the greatest minority, or the smallest minority, is the individual, as we had already discovered until recently, and everything got turned upside down by identity politics. So society is always a rough compromise, so it can't be perfect for everyone. So if you are deaf, there may be some challenges, but to give the other side, they could do better with subtitles. I don't know why the subtitling has to be poor, and they've said that's a problem. People are basically lazy and don't have attention to detail. So, yeah, there should be better subtitles. It can't be perfect for everyone, but that seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're auto-generated, then... because I know on YouTube and some social media apps, they auto-generate the subtitles, and speaking in Scots dialect, you're lucky if it doesn't come out as German.
Yeah.
But Saturday's Mail now, you can't even take a bath without the government knowing what you're doing. It's like 1984, Nick, with peeping Toms.
Yeah, Big Brother is watching you naked. Horrified man steps out of bath to see 2 motion sensor cameras pointing at him through his 9th floor flat window. And it says a naked man was left horrified. It kind of makes it sound there like he's always naked, like a naked man, that's just who he is, was left horrified. I don't know why that came to it. Darren Turner, he's called, if you want to check him out. It was in Kensington. And now they've blamed their contractor, Lawtech, and said, look, it was a security measure ahead of the festival. We're not sort of spying on you. But then it was a bit suspicious that there was a drone as well that said you should give up your thirst for freedom. And it was circling around like they did in China. I made up the last bit just to add something to this story.
It was an attempt at a joke.
Yeah. The audience at home will get it because they're smarter than both of you.
You told everybody how smart you are. Everything you say, I listen to.
Yeah, but the audience are smart, so they'll get it. They've all got 137 IQs compared to you guys.
I know my IQ is very high, but it's not as high as your sister, according to my mother said to me. Not as high as your sister.
Why does she do a lot of... Oh, the IQ.
IQ, yeah.
I thought it was a joke, like my IQ's not as high as my sister. Because she smokes a lot of...
it was what my mother said to me.
Anyway, getting back to the story. I mean, this is so Kensington and Chelsea Council, who sound like they're mainly perverts. They stuck a security camera, or their contractor stuck a security camera that pointed into this guy's flat as a safety measure.
Yeah, but according to the story, you've got to read 2 or 3 pages into the story. It said basically, the council said, and I'm no fan of the council, said they weren't cameras, they were motion sensors.
Right.
Okay? They're not CCTV, so it was...
No, there's motion sensor activated. So, if you're hanging loose, that swinging could trigger them. Anyway, Saturday's Mail and
So did I get this wrong?
Being good looking, yes. Sorry, you did. But we're on another story now. Being good-looking makes you seem intelligent and trustworthy. Shame we don't have anyone with those qualities to go through this story, Lewis.
Well, you want to know something? Since I lost the weight and I've kept in my age bracket, I'm incredibly good.
He's 108.
Yeah, exactly. Is that this? I mean, this is the Daily Mail. This is a news story. Is that they've done incredible research among 11,000 people, men and women from 45 countries, and they showed them pictures of ugly people and good-looking people and people who were better looking, were ascribed, were associated with, were seen as more intelligent, more sociable, more trustworthy, positive traits, and people who are ugly are considered mean meaning cheap, unhappy, and weird.
Right.
And weird.
So, I mean, Nick, isn't this the real class system? I mean, good-looking people are assumed to be all these positive things, and ugly people are assumed to be bad things.
Exactly. I mean, I've got a rare combination of looks and brains, but that's incredibly rare. And for most people, as Lewis has outlined, it's very unfortunate that people with less good-looking are deemed to have all these extra negative traits. And this has always been the case. And it's also been proved...
You would have to go to Dundee to be considered intelligent or good-looking.
It's also been proved that good-looking people get higher pay. I mean, maybe that's one I don't have.
That's why I'm in the big seat, Nick. That's why I'm sitting here.
They do better in job interviews and so on. So, yeah, it is very unequal. And once again, this is the impossibility of the woke project and identity politics, because we have to look at every single inequality, and we have to look at height, you're too tall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We'd have to go through everything, and it's impossible. So, yeah.
I'm with People who are better looking have more opportunities. I know. Yeah. I've lost a bit of weight. When I dress up, I mean, people are much nicer to me. So it's like, is that like as we would say, quelle surprise?
Yeah. The Times next, and let's get all American Psycho and compare business cards, Nick.
Yeah, microchip implants threaten to kill off the business card. I thought it was already gone. I didn't know we were still doing it. But this is Derek Peterson, Chief Technology Officer at Boingo Wireless. And he's had a microchip containing his details inserted between his thumb and index finger because of the hassle of carrying a business card. That just makes me laugh, because is it really such a hassle that it's worth ushering in a dystopian society? Because you can't be bothered bringing this tiny card that you don't even need anymore. And it says the device was implanted by Dangerous Things. That's the name of the company. They're telling you. They're telling you.
Why would you call a company that inserts microchips under people's skins? Why would you call it Dangerous Things?
They get a thrill out of telling you what they're doing, Leo. You will eat the bugs and you'll be happy.
Guaranteed to crash airliners. Yeah. That's a terrible name. Anyway, moving on. We'll try and fit in a couple more before we go. This from the Daily Mail, and a story that makes me wince, Nick. Yeah. This is the one about
the one I said we shouldn't do. The spanking one you want to do.
Yes.
Can I just say that I don't have a chip in my hand. If you want to find me, I'm Louis Schaefer on Twitter.
Okay.
WITech. You don't even need a business card. You just say what your name is nowadays, Louis Schaefer, and people will find you. They'll hunt you down.
The spanking one is Lewis. Do you want to do it, Lewis?
Yeah.
Which
Tell us
one
about
is
spanking.
19.
What's your
this is an American
fetish?
story. There's a place in Missouri, according to the Daily Star, which I've never, ever even touched, let alone read. The Daily Star says that in Missouri, they're changing disciplinary laws in this place called Cassville, which is home to Clete Boyer, who was a New York Yankee and of my childhood. So I remember that, even though I was a Mets fan. And is that they want to bring back spanking as a last resort out of control students. And which is interesting because, number one, parents aren't allowed to hit their own kids, but they're giving the school permission to hit their own kids. And the way they presented it, they've said, we can either suspend your kid or we can hit your kid. Which would you like? So, of course, the parents are going to go, we need to go to work. We can't have the kids staying at home. So it's a completely evil, evil plan.
Nick, do you wish you'd been beaten more by teachers?
Well, no, but I would bring back caning, and I think if Louis Schaefer had it, he would have ended up quite different. If he had some discipline in his childhood, that's what school's about. It's about instilling discipline and knowledge. And now, it's too liberal. Basically. I can see you wanted to end the show, so do that.
No, I'm just.
I feel the same.
It's okay. We're nearly there, Nick. I got caned at school, mostly on glue. But I think that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guest. Headliners is back tomorrow, as it is every night at 11 p.m. So come back then. I think I'm on too. Bye.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan Tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate, and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for big guests, big opinions, and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the